Hi, friends. Yesterday, I suggested to you that when we shine the light of Christ on our life, it illuminates our meaning and purpose. Let's think a little more about that today. In Romans chapter 11, verse 36, the Apostle Paul writes, "For from God and through God and to God are all things. To God be the glory forever." That's the New Revised Standard Version. The Living Bible paraphrases it this way: everything comes from God alone. Everything lives by God's power, and everything is for God's glory. The purpose of all of creation is to glorify God. From the tallest mountain to the smallest seed to you and me, we are created to show God's glory. Our purpose is to recognize and honor and declare and praise and reflect and live for God's glory in this life and in the life to come. Now, how we embody that purpose varies greatly, depending on our personality and our gifts and abilities and our circumstances, but the driving force behind our life is to glorify God. Now, of course, we have all allowed other forces to drive our life from time to time. Some people are driven by guilt, allowing the past to determine the future. Some people are driven by resentment and anger, holding on to past hurts and grievances and not letting them go. Others are driven by fear, missing great opportunities because we're afraid to step out of a comfort zone. Materialism is a driving force in many people's lives. You know, that myth that the more stuff we have, the happier we will be. And then there are those who are driven by the need for approval, always trying to live up to someone's expectations or giving in to peer pressure. Now, those are just a few examples of the other forces that drive our life right into the wrecking yard and onto the junk heap. When the driving force of our life is guilt or fear or anger or all the rest, we find ourselves fumbling in the dark and making a mess as we go. When we decide to follow Jesus, we no longer walk in darkness, but we have the light of life. Our purpose is to live eternally with God. And that doesn't just mean living with God after we die. Eternity encompasses all time, from forever in the past to forever in the future, including the present. As Christians, we believe that we are living with God every day. Now, aren't there some days when you know that you're living with God because there's no other way you could have made it through? We live with God every day, and we glorify God in our everyday life. To fulfill our purpose of glorifying God, we don't have to quit our jobs and move into a monastery. We don't have to sell all of our possessions and witness among the indigenous tribes of the Amazon jungle. Fulfilling God's purpose for our life does not necessarily include grand ideas or revolutionary inventions or monumental tasks. Instead, it springs from a commitment to be faithful in our day-to-day living, even in the most undervalued tasks. We'll explore that a little more tomorrow. But for today, remember that when we allow God's purpose to drive our life, we can step out of the fear and guilt and regret that have kept us in the dark for too long, and we can step into the light of life. The light of Jesus Christ sharpens our focus so that we can see the power of God working within us, and so that we can embody the power of God working through us to touch others. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again tomorrow.